Well, hello, my name is Cindy Argueta and I am the SOCH 355 course. And I did my project on social media platforms and self-worth. Sorry I couldn't present on Zoom. It is because I do not have a laptop at the moment and it's giving me a lot of issues on my phone. So basically, due to advances in technology, this is something that really caught my eye. It really caught my attention because like social media is something that's relatively new compared to the way we used to communicate to each other. And one thing that interested me was how it affected our self-worth. So due to advances in technology, we can now interact with people all over the world and are exposed to so much more via the internet. One thing that interests me is how new methods of social interactions via network platforms on the internet affect our perspective of self-worth. These images that are posted on social media, often showing just a piece of reality, can play games with our head. I am interested in seeing how social media affects the way we perceive ourselves. I believe, personally, my hypothesis was that social media negatively affects the way we view ourselves. So the first thing I did was the literature review, which is basically I just looked at existing data that had things to do with what I was interested in. This data allows me to create a background, get some definitions. It also helps me develop my research, and it gives me examples of how I could have set it up. So I got 3 articles, 2 journals, and 1 popular. So the very first source is social media and social comparison of ability. So basically, sorry if I'm looking down at the paper. What this looked at was social media and how it affected our perception of self. So social media in this case was the dependent variable, and the way we perceive ourselves was the independent variable. And the control variable that they had was time. Basically, the results were that being thin, successful, and beautiful was desirable. And the average age group was, they were in college, so it was 18. So things like being successful, beautiful, and thin were very desirable. And images that were shown online, they found a correlation to development of fragile identity. So when they were exposed to these images of, the ideal body or the ideal person or the successful person, it led them to develop fragile identities themselves. The second source is the role of Facebook's information towards self-image and self-esteem. And this one actually tried to do quite the opposite. It tried to look at Facebook or social media as something positive, like something that maybe builds our confidence by us posting a picture, getting likes, getting comments. But it also found that although a little bit, if we don't use social media too much, if we limit ourselves, it was associated with something positive. But once we excessively or overuse social media, it also led to negative connotations. So the results varied. Minimal use of social media has a positive self-image and self-identity outcome, but large amounts of social media were quite the opposite. So it depends on how much you were exposed to. And the very last source that I saw was called Tracking Mood app, which is basically an app that tracks your mood on your webcam. And they tracked, basically what they tracked was the facial expressions before, during, and after people were on social media. And it showed that they found like an increase in anxiety, and they found an increase in levels of sadness when people were on social media for too long. And all of this relates to what I want to do or what I was interested in, because it's all about evaluations of self. And even though it may not be self-worth exactly, the vocabulary used, or like, it's very similar basically. So my research assigned, my dependent variable was self-worth. This means the estimation or evaluation of self through things such as ability or affirmation. I feel, and then one of the questions was, I feel content with where I am currently in life. And basically the range was the range is 6. And even though these aren't numeric outcomes, like one of the options is I strongly agree, another one is agree, another one somewhat agree. They aren't numerical, but they have been giving numerical value, and the range is 6. My independent variable is social media. Social media in this case is a social network application that allows users to connect via internet, so connect to each other. And this one too, it doesn't have numerical value like the answers to the questions, but they're given a code so that we can put it into the SPSS. So this question is, I feel like those I follow on social media are not better than me. And it says, again, it's like strongly agree, some would agree, neither agree nor disagree. And this one is also in a range of 6. Last but not least, we had the control variable, which was time. Because obviously time affects it in different ways, like your exposure to social media. So I wanted to have something that shows on average how much time they spend on social media, just so we can have some sort of control. So my data analysis, we did a linear association, and then basically what the outcome was that my hypothesis was correct. So we reject the null hypothesis. My hypothesis was, I predict that social media such as Instagram and Facebook have a negative effect on an individual's self-worth in relation to lifestyle. And once we had conducted everything that is true, it did have a negative effect. Social media did have a negative effect on an individual's self-worth. And in conclusion, we reject the null hypothesis, and my original hypothesis that I predicted about the negative effects correlated with self-worth stands. Social media has affected many aspects of our social life, and there is still much more to be discovered. Technology is advancing, and the outcomes are unknown. This research found negative correlations, but I would like to study other aspects of social media that showcase the positive aspects, such as bringing groups together, group autonomy. So yeah, that is my project. Very concise, and thank you.